the United States of America, biggest deal country in the world, ladies and gentlemen, and we have no idea who's actually running it, right? I mean, no clue, because clearly the guy who's supposed to be running it is incapacitated in some way, shape, or form. Either that or they just took him out in grand fashion for no reason. Well, there may be a few things going on. Welcome to the show. I'm Trish Regan. Good to have you here. You can see I am on remote location, but still here every single day with you. We get some big stuff coming out of the president tonight. He actually is alive. What do you know? So we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about this whole Kamala thing, this brat movement. Have you heard of that? No, I hadn't. In fact, I checked around with like the cool kids. Nobody had heard of this. But apparently she's embracing this along with some vomit green coloring. Yeah, so much for red, white, and blue. She's going with vomit green and black. We're going to talk about that, why she is the DEI pick du jour. I'm sorry, but you know what? I call it like it is every single time. And how apparently you're just a bad person. You're not a true minority or a woman if you don't vote for her. That's the latest, right? That's the guilt trip that they're going to be running. We're going to look at the polls because I don't think this is going to play in Peoria, so to speak. But you know what? I could be wrong, and I say, you know what? You got to run scared. You got to run scared throughout this entire thing. But we begin first with Christopher Wray, because he's head of the FBI, and Matt Gaetz gave him a run for his money, shall we say, asking him what the heck is going on. I mean, who the heck is running the United States of America, ladies and gentlemen? Who, right? Can the FBI tell us? Not really. Watch.
Ben. Okay, so when did you notice his decline?
In my interactions, in my role, all my interactions with the current president have been completely professional.
Right, but I mean the cognitive decline. I'm not saying he treated you unprofessionally, just maybe not picking things up as quickly as he used to.
Again, I don't meet with him very often, but what you're describing is not something that I've observed during my interactions with him.
I mean, we've had it observed so often that the ranking member and Mr. Schiff on this committee have said that he could no longer continue as a candidate. And so, since you're the FBI director, I was just sort of wondering, like, who's running the country? Like if something bad happened, you'd have to go brief President Biden about it right now? God forbid?
And on any number of occasions, I have briefed the president, and as I said, those briefings have all been uneventful and unremarkable.
Oh, I can imagine them being uneventful. But in the work where the vice president's also present, like you say, there's like more than half the time there's these briefings, she's there too?
I don't know if I'd said more than half the time. Certainly, there have been times where she's been present. There have been other times where she hasn't.
I take you at your word when you say this is the most complicated threat environment you've ever observed over a long career in law enforcement. And I'm just kind of wondering, with this assassination attempt, with the invasion at our border, with all the Hamas that have been let in that you've talked about and briefed about, like, is Biden up to it? And if he's not up to it, and you're a guy who's been regularly briefing him, like, who's been in on this conspiracy to hide the real Joe Biden from all of us for years? It never occurred to you that this guy wasn't up to it in all these briefings you did?
As I said, my briefings with the president have all been completely fine.
Were they between 10 a.m. and 4 p.m.?
He's asked questions. There hasn't been anything of note in the area that you're talking about.
Yeah, did you ever have to brief him before 10 a.m. or after 4 p.m.? We hear those are as good hours.
Certainly times that I have briefed have included outside those hours.
Right, okay. I think the American people want to know how we got to this point with someone who's so diminished his own party has basically put him out to pasture. And since you had close proximity and the vice president had close proximity, I'm just kind of wondering if you were being straight with all of us about how things were going with him. I guess we'll have to figure that out.
You can count on me.
I don't know. Can we really count on him? I mean, I don't have a whole lot of faith, shall we say, in many people in this administration, particularly the FBI or the U.S. Secret Service, in light of what just went down. We can talk about more of that in a second. But here's a question for you. If the president is okay, then why isn't he running for another 4 years? I mean, how does that work? You want to talk about the threat to democracy? Like, can we just be perfectly honest? Perfectly transparent? They had a guy that was elected by the American Democrat Party, and they just threw him out to pasture. We all knew that he wasn't playing with a full deck, but they told us over here, Trish Regan, oh, that's fake news when you're running the clips of him showing how clearly incapacitated he was and is. No, that was somehow my fault, or your fault for thinking that he was somehow not all there. So they kept this mirage going until the mirage doesn't really working for them anymore, because they saw the polls and the handwriting was on the wall and Donald Trump was going to win. So what did they do then? They pulled the plug. But he's still standing. I mean, wow. I've been traveling. I was on a plane overnight. I'm looking at the news feed and the rumors and the rumors and the rumors. They keep coming, ladies and gentlemen. You got to be careful what you report these days. I'm very careful, and I always want to triple source anything before I bring it to you. But I'm looking at this stuff going, whoa, what is up? And part of the problem you see is when you create a void of information and you don't have any information coming forward, and you say, do what Joe Biden did, and you just resign via Twitter, or you're going to get some questions, as you should. But this may tell us more than you think. It may actually tell us he's not very happy with how things are going down. And so he wasn't out there, with all the fanfare saying, woohoo, I'm leaving, vote for Kamala. I mean, he's going to give us an appearance tonight. We'll see what that turns out to be. Today, he was asked, hey, why are you leaving? Check out his answer. Watch.
Why did you drop out, Mr. President? Why did you drop out of the election? Was it a difficult decision to make?
So here's the good news. He's alive. Joe Biden, ladies and gentlemen, he's still alive. I mean, for a while, it was seemingly touch and go. We didn't really know. There were all kinds of reports. Maybe he's on hospice, maybe he's this, maybe he's that. And again, I get back to this. You've got to be clear. You got to be transparent. You got to tell people what the heck is going on. And when you don't, that's when the rumor mill starts. So shame on the administration for not actually coming forward with more, unless this was just his way of getting back at people. I mean, look, he got taken out. He got taken out Chicago style. I mean, this is like full-on mafia type stuff, seriously. And Blagojevich had a great piece in the Wall Street Journal just exactly defining it that. In fact, I think the title was, let's throw it up, Drew. We got it here for you. Biden gets the Chicago treatment. Barack Obama, an old-fashioned ward boss, orchestrates the president's removal. Because, of course, it was Barack Obama. Barack Obama's calling all the shots. Barack Obama also is the one, ladies and gentlemen, who put Kamala Harris in the seat. I mean, she didn't deserve it. She hasn't won a single election in recent years. She got nowhere in the primaries, but, she checked a few boxes. Here we go. This is Blagojevich writing, quote, I've known Mr. Obama since 1995. We both grew up in Chicago politics, a very particular kind of politics, let's be clear. We understand how it works. My word's not his. But let me go on. Blagojevich writes, with the bosses over the people, Mr. Obama learned the lessons well. And what he just did to Mr. Biden is what political bosses have been doing in Chicago since the 1871 fire. Selections masquerading as elections. What do you know? Mr. Obama, and I know this kind of Chicago politics better than anyone, we both rose up on it, and I was brought to ruin by it when the Illinois legislature impeached and removed me from the governor's office in 2009 for conversations initiated by Mr. Obama himself. So he might have just a little axe to grind here. We know that. We're okay with that. Let me continue on. A common element in my case, and now Mr. Biden's, is Mr. Obama's involvement. He's the central figure who played a behind-the-scenes role in both stories. It gets better. He writes, while today's Democrat bosses may look different from the old-time cigarette-chomping guy with a pinky ring. It's a little reference to the mafia, if you didn't get it. They operate the same way. In the shadows of the back room, Mr. Obama, Nancy Pelosi, and the rich donors, the Hollywood and Silicon Valley elites, are the new bosses of today's Democratic Party. They call the shots. The voters, most of them, working people, are there to be lied to be manipulated, to be controlled. All along, Mr. Biden and Democrat politicians have been claiming that this year's presidential race is about saving democracy. They are the biggest hypocrites. in American political history. Well said. Well said by Rod Blagojevich. I mean, clearly, there's a lot of hypocrisy going around here, because you can't tell me you're all about saving democracy, all while putting someone at the top of the ticket who wasn't actually rightfully there to begin with. I mean, they really took him out. And a lot of people are saying, wait a second, did this just kind of happen while he was like on his near deathbed kind of thing? Again, I say that with a grain of salt because the rumor mill has been in overdrive, but apparently he was very sick. He was suffering from COVID. So there he is, light up with a fever. They've been pressuring him and pressuring him and pressuring him. And finally, they get him to sign off on this thing. And apparently the signature doesn't really look like his because there's an underline on it. Now, it's neither here nor there, but again, when you create this void of information, what do? You fuel the rumors. And that's exactly what happened. So everybody's pouring through these signatures and they're looking at them and they're comparing and contrasting. I think we have some examples. I mean, you look at the old signatures of Joe Biden and you compare them to this new one and you're like, wait, I mean, this is one of the things that's out there, okay? Like, you know what? The internet is a big, big place. And a lot of people have a lot of things to say. And I try to be very careful what we bring you. And who knows what's going on here. But I think it's a worthwhile point that people are bringing up. And if nothing else, I can tell you this, somehow people are asking questions because nobody's actually providing any kind of transparency. I mean, who the heck resigns from the top of the ticket via a post on X? It's just not done, right? Normally, you might give an address of some sort, which he's going to give tonight. So we'll see how that goes. Ladies and gentlemen, the new person at the top of the ticket is Kamala Harris. Kamala Harris, who has a pretty bad record on just about everything. I mean, everything, from politics to policy. She was in charge of the border. If we can say that with a straight face, right? In charge of the border czar, so to speak, except she never really cared about the border. Word on the street now is apparently when she goes to the border, they have to clean it up and they like hide people in certain places because they want to make it look a little bit better than it is. Reminder, subscribe to the show, subscribe, hit like, share, do all that kind of stuff because it's important more than ever right now. So Kamala Harris has this big job, the border, but she refuses to do it for whatever reason. Oh, I think we know the reason, because she doesn't really believe in actual borders. She believes in those quote unquote root causes and addressing those. And in the meantime, everybody can come here, right? Everybody can come here. This is a woman who's not really simpatico, shall we say, with the ethics and the morals of even the most traditional Democrats vis-a-vis, say, Biden or Clinton. This is like an Obama style on steroids kind of Democrat. That's who Kamala Harris is. And so the danger we now run as a country is we're going straight into socialism. We're walking right into it. And they've just anointed the person who's going to be the socialist leader. So when it comes to the border, forget about it. When it comes to Israel, really forget about it. I mean, for goodness sakes, Netanyahu just speaking gave a wonderful, wonderful speech there in a joint address before Congress. And where was Kamala? Oh, no, she had to go to a sorority meeting, a pre-booked sorority meeting. This tells you everything you need to know about Kamala Harris. More on that in just a moment. But first, Donald Trump, he knows her weakness. This border thing is kind of a big deal, and she kind of stinks at it. Listen to him.
As a result of her dangerously extreme immigration policies, the largest invasion in history is now taking place at our southern border, and it's getting worse, not better.
Not better. Definitely not better. And are we really going to trust this woman? I don't think so. I mean, she doesn't care about it. She, if anything, would probably want all of these people to be coming here and then legalize them to vote so she can win more in kind of an illegitimate, dare I say, way. It's not legitimate that she's on the top of the ticket. There's no way that she should be there. I always questioned why the heck he picked her as his VP. It never made any sense. After all, she attacked him up one downside and down the other, right? About the whole, basically, you're a racist, Joe. That was her mantra. That was her jugular. And she did that, and nobody liked it. I mean, she sunk immediately in the 2020 polls right after that debate. And yet somehow he picked her anyway, and it never made any sense to me, especially when we learned that Dr. Jill, and you know how important Dr. Jill is, Dr. Jill is like, don't like her. Well, Dr. Jill somehow signed off on this too? Maybe they had to. You see, because the big guy, the other big guy, the real big guy, the Chicago mafia type big guy, the one, with the pinky ring, okay? Nothing against pinky rings, but I'm quoting Blagojevich here. We're talking Barack Obama. Barack Obama's calling the shots. Barack Obama wanted her in the seat, and Barack Obama gets what he wants. So there she is, and now she's top of the ticket. How do you like it? Amazing how these things work. Take a look at the polls. The polls are not very kind to Kamala, but you know what? It's early, and I tend to run scared. So I don't think that we should sleep easy at night. Right now, Kamala Harris, actually, this one's kind of scary. This one, Reuters, ooh, they love this, right? The Reuters Ipsos one shows her ahead 2 points of Donald Trump. Kamala Harris, 44% to Donald Trump's 42%. I think we have another that suggests it might be a little bit more difficult for Ms. Harris. This would be the PBS poll that came out, and we're looking at 46 to 45. Look, this stuff is close, okay? This is really, really close. Shocking that it's this close. Shocking that somebody like this, who never actually was able to earn the spot in her own right, is somehow at the top of the ticket, somehow is neck and neck with Donald Trump, but it is what it is. And so it's important that people understand that they respect it, and that they acknowledge that, because, again, subscribe to the show. It's important you do, because this is a really interesting, challenging, tough time. James Carville recognizes, this is the guy who ran Clinton's campaign. He knows it's tight. He knows it's tough. And he's telling Kamala's side, don't get too excited with some of those polls, because it ain't over till it's over, folks.
James, it's a different dynamic with Kamala Harris now running for the presidency. A lot of Dems are really happy. You can see the excitement that seems like it's been infused into the campaign, as well as among Democrats at her rallies. But can she convince, with the different challenges at play that we've heard about now in Elise's focus groups, can she convince swing voters while also fending off Trump lies and attacks from the right?
Well, that's kind of a tall order, but the short answer is I think she can. But I'd say this. This has been a real change in mood in the party and around the country. But we got to be a little careful. There's about 10% too much triumphalism going on. And, it's going to be a very difficult race. It's going to be very close. And I understand that people are feeling a lot better and excited, but that excitement's got to be tempered with realism. And the realism is she has a tough campaign to run, and as you say, she's got several things she's got to accomplish at the same time. But having said that, there's been real growth in Vice President Harris. I mean, you can just see the difference, and she just looked so confident to me yesterday. That was I didn't put the sound on. I just left the video, and I liked what I saw, I'll be honest with you.
Yeah, but tell me about that realism. Tell me about the realism of the months to come. I mean, there's a short amount of time, and a lot is going to happen.
You're right, and they're having to put a campaign together right away. I mean,
Exactly.
they were obviously thinking about this ahead of time, but they got to accomplish between now and the convention. They got to accomplish what most campaigns have 8 months to do. So I'm saying they can't do it, but people are excited about the party's feeling better about itself. We have a woman on a ticket, a non-white woman, and people are genuinely and understandably excited about that. But we also got a locked-in and entrenched opponent who's got a large part of the country behind him who are going to pull out, and they don't care if it's true or unfair or anything else. And you got to be ready for that at every point. And
Okay. I mean, I can't even believe we're here, to be honest. I just cannot believe that the circumstances which have put us in this position right now, because the idea that this woman, Kamala Harris, who really doesn't have a whole lot going upstairs. I'm sorry. I'm just going to be perfectly frank. In the beginning, when she first showed up on the scene, I was like, oh, maybe she kind of looked the part. And then I'm like, whoa, I hadn't heard her talk. And then I heard her question Kavanaugh, and oh my gosh, not only is she not good, she's just not smart. She's not, she should be better, right? She was a former prosecutor. By the way, she's gone after a lot of the very people that the constituents that she wants to vote for her right now. She's ambitious, okay? I'll just say that. Kamala Harris is an ambitious woman, and that ambition has gotten her very far. But I don't think there's a whole lot there other than pure ambition. Nonetheless, you get people like, the Morning Joe host, all excited, saying, this is new life in the party, and you better vote for her or else. Listen.
All about the dynamic, and somehow Kamala Harris's presence as a candidate is really, in my opinion, is already and will continue to expose the nastiness on the Republican side that perhaps even some Republicans have become so inured to.
Really? So, in other words, if we say anything against Kamala Harris, we're just nasty Republicans? You're a nasty Republican if you're not going to vote for her. If you say anything negative about her, if you say, oh, gee, maybe she didn't really deserve the job or she's a DEI hire, you are the problem. You understand? All of a sudden, we're going to get in a situation now where people are once again afraid to say who they're supporting. And that's how they want it, which is really scary, ladies and gentlemen, super scary. But this is all part of the shtick. This is what they do over and over again. I mean, think about all the polling that we saw from Donald Trump. And when you look at the Trump versus Harris polling, you have to keep that one in mind too, right? Because once again now, you don't have, say, the ability to, we got an invalid in the White House, so I'm not going to vote for him. Now, if you're going to say, I'm not going to vote for Kamala, well, then you must be this, that, and the other, clearly, because otherwise you should vote for her. That's the thinking on the left. Joy Reid, a great example of that, another MSNBC host. I mean, amazing that these people actually have shows. And by the way, they should never call themselves news reporters. They're in no way actual news reporters. But this lady has a show on a news network. Her name is Joy. And she loves to do these little, one-offs on Instagram or wherever the heck else she is. And this is pretty disturbing because I think you're going to see a lot more of this. Madeleine Albright once said there's a special place in HELL for women that don't support other women. That was like, hey, you better vote for Hillary or any other woman who comes along. And in this case, Joy Reid is effectively sort of saying the same thing to anyone who's a minority or anyone else for that matter. Watch.
Given the just stratospheric entrance of Vice President Kamala Harris into the presidential campaign, and she has now secured enough delegates to become the nominee, you're going to look real crazy being on the other side of that line, particularly as a person of color, but really as anyone who claims to have any connection to the culture. You're going to look real weird and real lonely on that side. The door needs to close behind Amber. And she looked crazy over there. But shut the door behind her. You really are going to look crazy being on that side, given the cultural phenomenon of Vice President Kamala Devi Harris.
You got it? Anyway, she was referring to Amber Rose being a young African-American woman who stood up there at the RNC and said, you know what, I've been deserted by my party, the Democrat Party, and I have nothing in common anymore. And so I am crossing over to the other side. And so there's Joy, giving everybody who might even be thinking of the same thing an absolute warning. You're a crazy person if you do that. Clearly, because Kamala represents the future. Kamala is everything. Wait till you see the colors that this lady has chosen for her campaign. It's nauseating, like quite literally nauseating. Not to give too much away. Before I get to that, a big shout out to one of our great sponsors here on the show, American Hartford Gold. You know how important diversification is in your portfolio. I sit here and preach it every single day on this show. Diversification is critical because there's a lot of inflation in our economy right now. You need to take that into consideration because you want your dollars to actually be worth what you think they're going to be worth in the future. In order to do that, you got to keep up with inflation. So one of the diversification tools that I really, really push people to is a diversification into precious metals, things like gold. Hey, even silver, of which you can get up to $15,000 in free silver if you go and you text Trish, my name, 65532. That is the number you need to text it to. Just text Trish to 65532. You can call them at 1-844-495-1115. Use my name. Say you saw the offer here on the show. You can also go to, how do you like this? TrishLovesGold.com. TrishLovesGold.com. Easy to remember. I do love it. And so you can get more information on the up to $15,000 in free silver, that offer. Listen, it's a crazy time out there. And it's one of the reasons why we've seen multiple reasons. And we've gone into this in the past in depth. I believe we're going to have the CEO of American Hartford Gold coming on pretty soon. And he can go into it some more with all of you guys. But you get central banks around the world buying up gold. You've got a massive, massive amount of debt that this country keeps incurring, debt and deficits that are ballooning in really nonsensical ways. You combine that with all the crazy stuff the Federal Reserve and also the government's been doing, and what do you get? Inflation. And so that's contributing, of course, to the run-up that you've seen in gold prices. So check them out, trishlovesgold.com, or just text Trish to 65532 for your opportunity to learn about getting up to $15,000 in free silver, if you go with American Hartford Gold. So have you heard the term brat? This is new to me. Okay, I realize I'm not always one of the cool kids. I get it. You know what? I live my life. I like weird things like opera instead of rap. So, you know what? I'm gonna preface it with that. So I'm unique in my own special way. But nonetheless, I'm pretty much on the news curve, right? Like I read everything, even People magazine, like I read it all. I had never heard of this term. So then I started asking around to the kids and everything, and nobody had heard this term. So brat, do you know what brat means? Well, apparently Kamala is, quote, brat, B-R-A-T. And it's like something, although apparently the woman who coined the phrase is a singer that I also hadn't heard of, nor did any of the young people I talked to know of her. Drew, to his credit, but Drew has a great background in music and more pop music and country music, so he's a little more in the scene than me, the classical aficionado that I am. So anyway, this lady coined the term brat, and basically it's not very complimentary because it sort of means like you're a big hot mess, but you own it. Okay, great, you're a hot mess, but you own it. I don't want my president of the United States being a hot mess who's proud of it, but apparently that's cool nowadays. So I'll let Newsweek, who explained it quite well, I'm going to play this clip, and they can define what brat is, and then you'll say, hey, I learned something new today, and I definitely don't want Kamala now.
Is Kamala Harris brat? According to singer Charlie XCX, yep, she is. Let me explain. So when Joe Biden dropped out of the presidential race and Kamala Harris became the presumptive Democratic nominee, Charlie XCX took to X to announce Harris is brat. So what is brat actually? Well, it's Charlie XCX's new album. That's what it is. And the album artwork, which is just a green background with the words brat on it, have taken over the internet. The songs have taken over TikTok. Everyone is talking about this album. It is officially Brat Summer. Charlie XCX explained a little bit about what brat is. You are just that girl who is a little messy and maybe says dumb things sometimes, who feels herself but then also maybe has a breakdown but parties through it. It is honest, blunt, and a little bit volatile. That's brat. Think Courtney Love in the 90s, Amy Winehouse in the early aughts, and Kesha in the 2010s. Now, I don't know if I would put Harris in that category.
You think you just fell out of a coconut tree?
I mean, maybe. It depends on your politics, I guess.
You exist in the context of all in which you live and what came before you.
But the new Kamala Harris campaign has fully adopted this brat girl summer, if you will. And people on social media have definitely adopted this vibe fully. Got me thinking, like, who would be Republican alternatives for the brat girl summer? Maybe Nikki Haley? I mean, she's kind of a disruptor, if you will. Oh my God, no. Liz Cheney is fully brat. What do you think?
Enough, right? You know what I'll say? Those colors, can we see them again? If you go to the Twitter account for Kamala HQ, they've got this green and black, but it's a vomit green, okay? Like I just want to puke when I see it. Of all the color greens, seriously, green is a beautiful color. I love green. I wear a lot of green. I love green. It's actually one of my favorite colors. And we've got my new website coming out, and it's all in this beautiful Kelly green. Not a green like that. Like this is vomit green. And you know what else it reminded me of? Do you guys know the show Oz, or Wicked? Forgive me. It's Wicked. That's the Broadway show about the Wizard of Oz. It's about the Wild Witch of the West. She's like the Wicked Witch of the West. Forgive me, Wicked Witch of the West. I mean, those are the colors. And then she's got the laugh. And I'm sorry, but like, go for it. Go for it, Kamala. You embrace this brat thing. Most presidential candidates would actually choose red, white, and blue as their colors, but not Kamala Harris. Kamala's going with vomit green and black. That tells you pretty much everything you need to know about the lady. You combine that with the fact that she skipped out on BB today because she had to go to a sorority meeting. And yep, she's trying to energize. She's trying to energize the crazy lefty base and all those people that want to go out on college campuses and protest and, you know, have their food brought into them by the college cafeteria simultaneously. Catering. They need their catering. This is like DEI on steroids. I'm sorry. Like, and you know what? People are being criticized. I'll be another one that's criticized for saying that. You're apparently not to say this. But I'll tell you what, like, I don't even need to say it. Joe Biden said this. Joe Biden said this in late May of 2024. In fact, there was a speech that he gave. Drew, do we have this graphic by any chance? Because I want to quote from this actual speech. He just said it right out. I mean, like, he, you know, who needs to beat around the bush, for goodness sakes? He actually talked about it. This is in remarks by President Biden and Vice President Harris at a campaign event in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. And let's check the date, May 29th, 2024. I mean, back when they thought he was still okay to run, right? Amazing what a few weeks can do. Quote, "Together, we make history, not erase it. To me," Joe Biden says, "the values of diversity, equity, inclusion," that would be DEI, "are literally," and this is not kidding, "the core strengths of America. That's why I'm proud to have the most diverse administration in history that taps into the full talents of our country. And it starts at the top with our vice president." Our vice president, who's there for DEI reasons only? Come on, I mean, for goodness sakes, the woman couldn't even figure out her way to the border. She wouldn't even go. No, she went down and had to meet with, you know, the president of Ecuador and the president of this, that, and the other to address the root causes of immigration, but she couldn't actually be bothered until push came to shove, and then they had to clear the way for her and get rid of all the riffraff when she eventually showed up. Wow, I mean, it's really, really, really disturbing. And just so I don't get too upset about it, I'm going to make sure I take my Balance in Nature. How's that for a segue? One of our other great sponsors on the show, Balance in Nature, balanceinature.com. Go there, everyone. You can get 50% off. 1-800-246-8751. Just use discount code TRISH. 1-800-246-8751. Balanceinature.com. They've got tons of testimonials there. I take it every day. I think, you know, look, having a lot of water, getting your exercise, and taking your fruits and veggies, your vitamins is extraordinarily important, especially as we get older, right? You need that nutrition. You need to take care of yourself. I could do a whole show just on this. Drew heard me the other day. I was like, make sure you drink your water. Make sure. I mean, I do. Do I not, Drew? Right? I'm always like, and that's why I always keep water with me. I try and drink my water. I try and get my exercise, and I take my fruits and veggies every day from Balance in Nature. So check them out. You can get 50% off right now, which is a big deal. I've actually never seen a code like this. So use Trish, TRISH, and go to balanceinature.com today. But you look at everything that's happening right now, and it's like, wow, I mean, this is surreal. We are on the front lines of history. And I was traveling yesterday, so I had to miss yesterday's show. I apologize to all of you about that. And I was getting all this news in. I was like on a plane, and I didn't have a lot of access to information in the same way that I normally would. And I was just overwhelmed. I was like, you got to be kidding me. I mean, the rumors were insane, so insane. And it struck me that it's really critical in this age of new information, right, that we go above and beyond to make sure that things are vetted, but also there's some responsibility on the side of the administration as well, and that they have to be forthcoming. They have to actually provide people so that they don't go into this vacuum. I've seen it, by the way, having worked in networks before. I've seen what happens when you don't have any information and there's no leadership at the top. It becomes a free-for-all, like a serious circus or a serious you-know-what show. Shh. Okay, that's what happens. And so we don't really have any leadership right now at the top. It's how I began the show, like who the heck is in charge, right? One of the questions that Matt Gaetz has. And then you look at all the things that have happened for political reasons, right? Not actually giving the Secret Service the money that they need in order to do their job. Kim Cheadle's out. She should have resigned voluntarily. Shouldn't have had to come to that. But I think we have some more sound of Christopher Wray trying to somehow justify in some way, shape, or form why the heck it was that they didn't have enough Secret Service on the ground. How the heck does Dr. Jill, get 12 people for a dinner, and Donald Trump, former president of the United States, with thousands of people at a rally, he winds up with 3? Listen to Christopher Wray.
Trump not kept off the stage?
We don't know the answer to that, but I want to be clear, and this is important because I think it goes to questions that I can and cannot answer. Our investigation, the FBI's mandate, is focused on the shooter and all things related to his attack. Now, obviously, I understand very much the intense interest and focus on the Secret Service's performance, actions, decision-making, et cetera. There are 2 separate after-action reviews, the DHS Inspector General and the outside independent panel that's been convened that are focused on that. Now, our investigation will obviously overlap with that.
Here's the problem. We're out 13 days, and you say we've been disclosing. You know, we had the director, or the colonel from the Pennsylvania State Police in front of Homeland yesterday. He was quite candid. He disclosed to us that Butler Emergency Services Unit personnel were posted into the windows on the 2nd floor of the AGR building, that they left there to go pursue the person that they spotted, Crooks, that they texted a photo of Crooks to the PSP representative in the command center. That information was relayed to the United States Secret Service. They asked that it be texted to someone else. That was many minutes before President Trump took the stand. What we don't know is why were they not keeping him off the stand? And to the extent, you know, I know we always hear when there's a criminal investigation, you got to wait for that to develop. But do you have any reason to, do you have any other target of your criminal investigation other than Crooks, who's dead?
We are investigating the shooter both to determine his motive and his preparations and activities before the shooting, but also to make sure whether or not there are any co-conspirators, accomplices.
At this point, have you developed any evidence to so suggest that there are any accomplices or cooperators or assisters?
Not at this time, but again, the investigation's ongoing.
So here's the...
I'll tell you, that's going to be one hell of an investigation. They have a lot of questions to answer, a whole lot of questions. And I think the real conspiracy, and there's a lot of conspiracies out there, but the real challenge here, guys, is that somehow the Biden administration made a decision not to allocate the proper amount of resources to the Trump campaign. In other words, he couldn't get the right amount of security. Why? Oh, because maybe they didn't want him running. I mean, think about it. They did 91 counts, 91 indictments against the guy. So they had a lot of reasons for not wanting him out there. None of those had worked. None of those worked. And so what did they do? Oh, they tried other methods. And this is one of the creative methods that they tried to employ. Just give him less security, right? Maybe then he won't go do all those rallies. Maybe then he won't be as successful. And yet he continued to be successful. And so now they had no choice. Well, we got to get rid of Joe Biden, for goodness sakes. Can't have him running against Trump because, well, he kind of bombed in that little debate, which I do think was somewhat deliberate. Why on earth would you allow Joe Biden, seriously, if you're part of his staff, if you're advising him, why would you have ever allowed him to do a debate in the first place? Knowing that he is extremely challenged when it comes to having to think through an entire 2 minutes of speech, right? Like you wouldn't. And yet they did. And so you got to ask yourself, was that deliberate too? I mean, a lot of questions and a lot of conspiracies going out there. And I'm telling you, when you don't have the right information or you have some fake information being fed you, this is what happens. It's one of the reasons why I started my company, right? 76 Research. I've told you before. This is why I started it, because I was sick of the nonsense being fed to investors, because at this point, money's on the line, right? I mean, think about the market. When COVID-19 was first on the scene, we were tanking 2,000 points. I'm like, are you guys crazy? Are you crazy, right? Because you got to know that eventually things are going to recover. Yes, Donald Trump is going to happily sign his name to some checks, which were going to go in the mail. You knew the Federal Reserve was just itching to get a chance to be helicopter-esque and drop loads of money on things. And so you had to be able to think clearly. Well, nobody thinks clearly in situations like that because they get CNN treating things as though it's, how shall we say, a missing plane, right? With the red set and the whole 9 yards. And so there was a hysteria in America that led to some things that, frankly, in my estimation, should not have happened from an economic standpoint, right? You need a strong economy to fight something like that. And so we made a lot of bad decisions. And I'm sick of people making bad decisions. And, you know, when there's money on the line, you can't do it, which is why I started 76 Research in conjunction with my co-founder, Rob Horton, who spent more than 20 years on Wall Street, brilliant investor and stock picker, has run billions of dollars in mutual funds. And he and I teamed up because, you know, I wanted to do something for you guys. So we've got a special going on. It's still going on for the next few days. So I'm going to give it to you now. It's dollar, code word dollar, DOLLAR. Just go to 76research.com, 76research.com or 76report.com. This is how you get the 76 report for just $1. I was going to say for free, but it is $1 a month for the first 2 months, and then it's $9.95 thereafter. And this is what you need to start investing, because there's brilliant stock picks in there. This is not a get rich quick kind of thing. This is about picking good companies that are going to help you make money and beat inflation. In fact, we have an inflation protection portfolio. We have an American resilience portfolio. It's all about growth. We have a portfolio that's just about income. It's called an income generator portfolio. So you can get all the portfolios and the 76 report if you go into the Founders Club. That's the best deal of all. Check out Founders Club when you're on the website, 76research.com. But do this for yourself, because I'm doing it for you. I want to make sure that you're ahead of the game. Don't rely on Uncle Sam or Uncle Joe or Aunt Kamala. Momala, that's what they actually, I'm sorry, she's not even a mom. Oh, she's a stepmom. Okay, so no offense to those that are step parents out there, but I'm sorry. I just can't get there yet. I'd be happy to be proven otherwise. I just don't think there's a lot going on upstairs. And it really frightens me for our nation, for our economy, for our security, for all of these reasons. We're better than that. We're better than her. If we're going to have a first woman president, let's make sure it's somebody who really deserves the job, as opposed to somebody who's handpicked, plucked by the likes of Barack Obama. These polls are frightening. These polls are frightening. I'm telling you, like, it shouldn't be this close. It really shouldn't. So let's keep an eye on it. Make sure you subscribe to the show. I will be back here live. Hopefully we have some daylight behind me tomorrow. I'm on a little bit of a reporting trip here and trying to squeeze in some R&R while I'm in the process. So I look forward to seeing you again tomorrow live on the Trish Regan Show. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts, thank you, or on Spotify, thank you. If you're not, go over there, check them out. We're live there on those platforms as well, and you can subscribe, and it's all for free. And hopefully give us 5 stars and a nice rating. We appreciate it always. Certainly I do. I'll see you tomorrow. Thanks for tuning in, everyone. Watch the president tonight.